Welcome. This morning, I'll give you a quick thought in our morning wake-up time. I don't know, maybe we're not going to call this 7 minutes of Scripture anymore. Maybe we're going to shorten it just a little bit and call it a wake-up call. How about that? So for our morning wake-up call this morning, did you know that your expectation is going to affect your behavior? And the Bible verifies this. In the book of 2 Peter, Peter dives into some things in chapter 3 that are directed towards us as Christians, and he begins to tell us that, hey, the day of the Lord, it's coming as a thief in the night, and we must be ready, and that when he comes, and when all's said and done, the works of this world and the things that were done in this world are going to be dissolved away, and what's left that was done for him is what he'll reward us with accordingly. And it says in verse 10, it says, all those works shall be burned up. But down into verse 13, he makes a statement. He says, nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. And then in verse 14, he says, wherefore, beloved, seeing that you look for such things, be diligent that you may be found of him in peace, without spot, and blameless. Now, this is a pretty interesting verse of Scripture, because he's declaring to us that if you're looking for him, if you're focused on this, then your behavior is going to be affected. Now, I think we're all in agreement with this. If we just use children as an example, if children know that the parents aren't going to be home for a little bit, then they might neglect their chores until the very last minute. If parents know that if kids know that they're going to be hanging out at Grandma and Grandpa's, then they probably are going to save a little bit more room for those cookies and those sweets that always seem to hang out on the counter. And I know that's true with mine. So you understand our expectation affects our behavior. If we're expecting to have a bad day, you're going to have a bad day. If you're expecting for your day at work to go rough, it's probably going to go rough. And if you're expecting yesterday morning, if you walked into church and you're expecting that the sermon would be flat and the singing would be off key, then you probably weren't happy with the singing. So you understand expectation affects behavior. Well, it affects our life in a much greater capacity than just the daily. He says, now, if we're looking for these things, we need to be diligent that we may be found of him in peace, without spot and blameless. And it's oftentimes that we lose a great confidence that Christ is doing anything in our life and is performing anything, and we lose focus on the finish line. If you'll remember Paul, he declared, he said, I've run my race with patience. And he declared that Jesus Christ was the prize at the end of the race. He was the finish line. It wasn't something of this world. And so if we're going to live, well, as he said here, in peace and spotless and blameless, we're going to have a greater expectation than what this world can offer. That greater expectation is Jesus Christ. So I'd encourage you, go back and read 2 Peter chapter 3 today and be encouraged. There's a lot of great encouragement found here, a lot of great instruction that we need to be living with finish line in view, and not just this life alone. Well, I certainly missed you last week. I had a little week off. Many of you reached out, and I thank you for that. I think it was awfully encouraging to hear from so many of you, and every now and again we just need a rest, and it's been a long 7 months and almost 8 months now, and my body is not the body of a 20-year-old, nor is my mind and my energy. So I appreciate your prayers, appreciate everybody that reached out, and so look forward to being back at it this week. And I pray that you have a wonderful Monday. I pray that your expectations are reflected in your actions as you go throughout this day. I look forward to